I shall leave you as you left me, as you left her, marooned for all eternity in the center of a dead planet. Buried alive. Buried alive. Come!
Hey there kids, welcome back. David here, and today I have a bit of a surprise for you. This is the QMX Khan Noonien Sun figure based on his character in the original Star Trek series, filmed in 1967. That was Ricardo Montalban as Khan in the Space Seed. And over here, just for laughs, I've got my autographed picture of Ricardo Montalban and Hervé Villechaize, a notorious little jerk. Not kidding, he had an incredible history of verbal and physical violence. But beside the point, what we're really focusing on is Ricardo Montalban, who unfortunately is best known for his role as Mr. Rourke in Fantasy Island, which is what this autograph is from. 1977 to 1984. I didn't even realize it was on that long. But he also played Khan in both the original series and in the second major motion picture, Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, in 1982. He took time out from filming Fantasy Island to be in this film. And that is the original shipping box, which I've already split open on the top. And we're going to go ahead and open it up and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so we've got it open, and there is Khan, and that is a picture of the figure. Now, pluses and minuses here with the packaging. One thing that I do not like with a lot of these companies, a lot of them, is they just take a really flimsy standard cardboard box like this and then put the product packaging directly inside. And unfortunately, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this, it arrives damaged. The box arrives damaged. This one isn't bad. You can see it took like some small hits on the corners, and they do reflect through into this packaging. Being primarily an in-the-box collector, I don't like to see that. Now, because I am an in-the-box collector, normally I don't open things like this, but this I will open because 1/6 scale figures typically are made to be open, displayed, and then put back and resealed. I don't have a problem opening this up and taking a look at it. But I just wanted to point that out about the packaging. I understand that companies are trying to keep their expenses down, and shipping has gotten really bad over the years. It's gotten more and more expensive, and it makes it difficult. What I do like, though, is that they often pack it in these plastic bags inside of the box. So let's say, for example, your box was left on the porch or doorstep and it started to rain. At the very least, this will remain dry inside of the original shipping package, which is pretty good. And it's a good photograph of the action figure that's inside. I would have preferred if they put a picture of the actor on the front of the box instead of a photograph of the actual figure that's inside. I'll flip this around. Star Trek Original Series QMX Master Series Articulated. Khan Noonien Sun 1/6 scale articulated figure. Enterprise Information NCC 1701 limited edition. And as you can see on the bottom here, this is a limited edition of 1,000 pieces only, although it does not tell you which number this is. They neglected to fill that part in. And this is a slip cover, and I'll slip that off here. Right there, you can see the damage that followed through from the outside of the shipping container. So let's slide that off. And there is Khan on the inside. Looks like he's very securely packed. Doesn't seem to come with too many accessories. His uniform, a belt, he has a stand, extra sets of hands, and what looks like a phaser. And I'll turn this around here, and there's another picture, another photograph of the toy. Very good likeness of Ricardo Montalban from that time period, holding a crushed phaser, and there is a scene that is depicting from in the film, or in the episode rather, Space Seed, February 16th, 1967 Space Seed, for those of you keeping track, where he snatches a phaser from Kirk and basically rolls it up in a ball. Because he is an augmented human. Everyone on board his ship, the Botany Bay, all of the people who were cryogenically frozen, are augmented humans. Faster, stronger, smarter through genetic engineering. From the genetic wars of the 1990s in the Star Trek universe, in the original Star Trek universe. I'm not sure if the new Star Trek is doing all that. So we're going to go ahead and open up this packaging and take a look at Khan. And this should be fairly easy to open. There's a little flap right there. And that should be it. This should come out. I'll get this to come out without wrinkling everything up, hopefully, because I do like to keep the packaging intact. And there it is. There's your tray. And here comes Khan. And it's typical clamshelling. You know, this is how a lot of them are done, where it's like an outer shell over an inner shell. And I'm going to go ahead and lift that off now and stand him back up so that we can take a look at him in his packaging. And then we'll take him out and display him and do a little bit more of a discussion on this character. I see he has a few more items in here. Oops! And something fell out immediately. I'll take care of that in a moment. But there he is in his tray, and his phaser and a tool has fallen out, but I'm going to recover that and show you here in a moment. Everything just sort of fell forward, and that's what that tray is for, is to keep everything from falling out in the packaging to avoid the risk of damage. So let's go ahead and get him out of there. And here he is now out of the package, and I've got him on the Lazy Susan just to help things along. On the front here we can see the accessories that he comes with. He has a trigger finger hand, another gripping hand, a pair of fists, a grasping hand, the crushed phaser that he had taken from Kirk, and then a tool from engineering, and that is the tool that Kirk actually eventually beat Khan with when he defeats him at the end of the episode.
I have 5 times your strength. You're no match for me.
Now he comes with a Star Trek Emblem stand that he's using now, and of course it has this insert and one of these nut hugger stands that have gotten so popular with these figures, because you know the traditional doll stand that was normally being used for these figures was the one that went up to about under the armpits and then reached around, and I guess people didn't like looking at that. couple of back pockets that look like actual functional pockets. There's an opening on the top of them, elastic waistband, and a belt. Emblems at the cufflink. Very well stitched, the uniform itself. He has the traditional sort of Star Trek cowboy boots on, and they don't go up too high, I don't think. If I lift that up, because his ankle is not really articulated. Oh, it is. It does pivot. It's falling forward a little bit here. Some more insignias on the front of his uniform, and then at his neck. And his hands, neck, face, and boots were covered by plastic. I did not remove the plastic that was over his neck. I left that on. And if you look at the back of his head, he does have his hair tailored into a ponytail. But that does, although that is fitting for the character, because he did pull his hair back into a ponytail, it obstructs some of the mobility. He cannot raise his head higher than where the ponytail stops. Otherwise, you know, he can tilt. There's a minimal amount of tilt side to side. He can turn his head and look around. So the ponytail does obstruct some of the mobility. One other thing I noticed that's kind of interesting was he's got a little bit of a belly, which is screen accurate. Ricardo Montalban was in good shape, but he had a little bit of a belly there. And the way that they managed this, if I can show you, and this is Velcro, and if I had any minus on this, the Velcro would be one of them. I do not like Velcro on these sorts of things. I prefer snaps or buttons. Even the original G.I. Joes had that. But if you open it up, you see here he's got sort of a Santa suit kind of a thing going on underneath. Let me bring him forward, maybe that'll be a little easier. You open this up and there's a padded belly vest that he's wearing under his suit, like a Santa sort of a thing, I said, and that gives him the extra little pooch that's showing in the front there. There you go, Ricardo. He also has a little Ziploc bag with a couple of extra of the insignia, little decoration, I guess in case you lose one or two of them. So they provided a couple of extras. Many of you may remember Khan, Ricardo Montalban, in Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, 1982, which, quite frankly, is probably the best written and best performed of all of the Star Trek films to date, at least in my opinion, and I've spoken with a lot of other, you know, big Trek people who kind of feel the same way about it. They just think that that film is the best one ever done, including the modern reboots. I tend to agree. And it's 15 years in the Star Trek timeline. You know, Space Seed came out in 1967, and Wrath of Khan was 1982, which is a 15-year difference, but it's also 15 years in the Star Trek universe. And the writer at the time, he didn't know what to do. They did Star Trek the Motion Picture. It was okay, but it wasn't the blockbuster they were looking for, and they turned to the writer, I can't remember his name, and he really didn't know much about Star Trek. So what he did, he went back, and this is something for all you inspiring television and movie writers out there when you don't know what to do, went back and watched every episode of the original Star Trek. And something about this one just really caught his attention. Something about the whole space seed, and particularly at the end of it, because it was left open-ended at the end of the episode when Spock says to Kirk, "I wonder what the seed that you, Kirk, has planted will bear in 100 years." And it was a pretty open-ended question, and he said, "You know what, that leaves room for a continuation, and Ricardo Montalban is around. I wonder if I can get him to play the same part." And Ricardo was all for it. Although he regretted, Ricardo that is, regretted that he didn't get to do any scenes personally with William Shatner. They never even met. They didn't meet during the filming. The only time they interacted was over camera, and their scenes were filmed like months apart. And he thought that he could have done an even better performance, which his performance was already stellar, an even better performance if they were able to directly interact with one another. And I tend to agree. I think it would have been a good idea. Noonien Sun's character, of course. Let me get back over here. Just trying to give you as many angles as you can. Again, part of the eugenics wars of the 1990s in the Star Trek universe. Khan was a successful conqueror, and he was in charge of a quarter, apparently, of the Earth, 25%. From 1992 to 1996, according to Star Trek history, anyway. And that he was both an aggressive and a benevolent leader, sort of a perfect leader, if you will, combination. But you know, they were all defeated. All of the hyperhumans were defeated, and him and his crew on the Botany Bay escaped and were cryogenically frozen and found and thawed out by Kirk and crew. It would have been nice for Ricardo Montalban to come back even one more time, even though his character dies at the end of Wrath of Khan. They could have found a way around it because it's movies. Unfortunately, that was not meant to be. If you ever wondered what happened to Ricardo Montalban, he was paralyzed. The actor in real life was paralyzed when he was much younger, because he has a very long career and a long television and movie history, believe it or not. He didn't just star in Fantasy Island and Star Trek. He did a lot of things. And I think it was, what was the name of that film? I think it was Across the Wild Missouri. Is that the right one? Across the Wild Missouri. In 1950 or 1951. Western film, obviously. And Ricardo Montalban did a lot of westerns. Look at that face sculpt. That is just really well done. That's a good likeness of him in 67. Well, he had an accident in 51. He got thrown from his horse in one of the scenes, and when he hit the ground, another horse ran over his back, so he got trampled, and he was unconscious, and he was severely injured. And his what do they call it, anteriovenous malformation, which is a nerve cluster or nerve transference system in the spine, was damaged. And although he recovered from it, he was in chronic pain his whole life. And as he got older, it kept getting worse and kept getting worse. And I think it was 1993. In 1993, he had back surgery, 9-hour back surgery to correct the problem, but they messed it up. And when he woke up, he was a paraplegic. They had done some kind of damage to him, and he had lost the use of his legs. And from that point, he went into voice acting, primarily. Let me show you some of the articulation here. He went into voice acting, and he did everything from freakazoid, basic articulation. You see how the wrist turns, goes both ways, rotating hands and shoulders. It feels a little tight, but I think that's because of the jumpsuit is causing restrictions. But he voice acted in everything from Freakazoid on Animaniacs to characters on Family Guy. And then, unfortunately, one of his last on-screen appearances. Oh, now you can see his boot. It feels like, the whole thing feels like vinyl. I bet you that it could slip off over his foot. It feels like it could slip off, but I don't want to mess with it, because I don't want his foot to get dislodged and then I can't reconnect it. But good ankle articulation there. In 2001 and 2003 in Spy Kids, which is not the last thing you want to be remembered for. Goodness, he's got junk. Can you see that? He's got a little bit of man bulge there. Way to go, Con. But yeah, for such a great actor, and he really was a good performance actor, for your legacy to end up being Fantasy Island and Spy Kids is kind of unfortunate. So if you get a chance to see him in any of his old television appearances, Bonanza, Columbo, various other shows that he did guest appearances on, or in any of his old films, particularly westerns, but he was Mexican. He was like Spanish, Mexican American, and he rarely played somebody from Mexico. He did sometimes, but he would also very often get cast as a Native American Indian, or even a Japanese person. But his performances were very good, and he's a very intense actor. I would recommend, if you see a film starring Ricardo Montalban, it's worth taking a look at. This was purchased through SideShow, and SideShow does still have these available. There's 4 in the series from QMX. Actually, there's 5 items. Only 4 of them are action figures. They had Kirk, Spock, McCoy, which makes sense because those are the primary main characters of the show. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are the main characters. Everyone else is a supporting character. Khan, and then Kirk's captain's chair, which Kirk and Spock, it's kind of too late. They're sold out. They're gone. They still have Khan on SideShow. No, I do not work for SideShow. I'm just telling you where it came from. They do still have Khan, and they do still have McCoy and the captain's chair. Actually, I'd kind of like to get the captain's chair and display Khan sitting in it, since he did mutiny the Enterprise in that episode, which I think is fascinating, to coin a phrase. So what do you think? What do you think of this figure? Is this something you'd be interested in? Are you interested in Star Trek figures at all? 1/6 scale figures of any kind? Do you collect anything else from QMX Studios? The stuff of dreams, according to them. Tell us about it in the comments section down below. Love to hear about it. Stay tuned for more unboxings, more showcase videos of modern and vintage figures. Check out some of the other videos. And we do a lot more here than just showcasing figures and unboxings and things like that. We have a lot of discussions. We do a weekly roundup. We do a lot of different things on this channel. So please do give the video a thumbs up if you got something out of it. I hope you did. Like, share, subscribe. The more of you there are, the more we can do here. So please do subscribe and hit that notifications icon. And I hope you enjoyed checking out Mr. Montalban as Khan Noonien Sun, and I hope to see you again soon. So thanks for watching.
Well, either choke me or cut my throat, man.